Welcome to Token Show. I'm Lacey Camp. Today, listen, love, and turn the other cheek with Joy Oladokun. Some most outstanding live performances.
When I see you, I see love, I see America. I feel your pain, I share your blood, I see America.
And much compelling conversation.
Despite all the violence that I've suffered in my lifetime and that people like me have suffered in their lifetimes, I'm going to hope and I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to invite you to hope and be happy and heal with me without any prerequisites or conditions. The only condition is that you have to be willing to accept my humanity to do it.
Our full session with Joy, taped live in Nashville's Sound Emporium, coming right up after the break. Joy Oladokun is a singer, songwriter, producer, and multi-instrumentalist based right here in Nashville. She's released 2 studio albums, Carrie and In Defense of My Own Happiness. She's a craftswoman of some beautiful songs that demonstrate the complexity of things like racism, anger, faith, and love, while at the same time weaving in encouragement and hope. And we're most pleased to welcome Joy to the Sound Emporium. Welcome, Joy.
Thanks for having me.
I saw a guy out on the block today. He was darker than the preachers say, with a teardrop tattooed on his face and dirt in his fingers. I heard angels when he laughed away, the people do when they have known true pain. For his sins I don't know who's to blame. What choice was he given in this world that we're living? When I see you, I see love, I see America. I feel your pain, I share your blood, I see America. Said your mother knows a different time. She lets her tongue slip with a glass of wine. She says some things out loud that don't feel right, but you always forgive her. Don't you see the world's changing now? The blood of the fallen cries out from the ground. Violence and rumors in a southern town. Both start with a whisper, but so does the difference. When I see you, I see love, I see America. I feel your pain, I share your blood, I see America. When I see you, I see love, I see America. I feel your pain, I share your blood, I see America. When I see you, I see love, I see America. I feel your pain, I share your blood, I see America.
Well, thanks, Joy. My, what a way to start.
Thank you. Thank you
Yes.
for having me.
Really good to have you.
Yeah.
The Rolling Stone said, I think in a recent article, perhaps about this album that I See America comes from, quote, anger, sadness, and grief are all present, but so are hard-won optimism and gentle reminders that it's possible to survive and even thrive amid chaos. I feel like that's a fair description of what you're trying to do in that album or in that song.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope. I feel like that's a good description of how I hope a lot of my work comes across is I want the full spectrum of the human emotion and experience to be present.
Yeah. Obviously, in that particular song, you have quite a number of kind of compelling images pointing to racism, pointing to brokenness.
Don't you see the world is changing now? The blood of the fallen cries out from the ground. Violence and rumors in a southern town. We'll start with a whisper, but so does the difference when I see you.
How does your own particular take on those sorts of images, how have you learned to begin to process anger in a way that also holds together that kind of hope?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of choices you have, I think, when anger arises in you. I think you can sort of seek to lash out and destroy, or you can take that thing in us that gets angry and says things are not as they should be, and you can turn that into action, and not just violent action, but into, how do I take care of my incarcerated brothers and sisters? How do I take, action in like local elections or in moments where I see my neighbors and myself struggling? Like, how do I continually remind myself and remind others that we're all sharing this human experience and that we get to take care of each other? I think that's the other choice that you have when anger comes up. And it's not always a fun choice because sometimes you just want to break things. But I do think that there are a lot of really amazing people, I think, that were probably very angry. Like, I'm sure like Gandhi was angry, or Martin Luther King was angry, or, Nina Simone, or, John Lewis. I'm sure like a lot of the people we look up to were very angry, but we also look up to them for the way they took their anger and and transformed it into positive action.
Yeah.
When I see you.
As I've listened to the song a number of times before you came, but listening to it again just now, the way you use the refrain, I see America, I was struck by the way that one could hear that as indicting, and yet one simultaneously has to hear it as this sort of pastoral love.
When I see you, I see love, I see America. I feel your pain.
It's very compelling to hold those two together, because I think so often what happens in social commentary these days is that we get into this sort of polarization and hostility. But it seems to me that you're trying to weave that together in such a way so that people kind of are disarmed, perhaps, and they say, yeah, this is, how can I be drawn into this rather than being hostile to one party or the other?
Yeah, because I think at the end of the day, we all want the same things, especially in this country at such a divisive time. We all want to be healthy and to be taken care of, and for everybody to be safe and to succeed. But we all have different ideas about how to go about it, or who should get there first. And I think what I hope to bring into the public discourse with my work is just this idea of hearing everybody out, and not just there's the argument by the predominant culture that hearing everybody out means silencing marginalized voices, and that's not what I mean. I really, or silencing any type of voices. I mean, it's taking those voices that we've listened to and that we've uplifted for a long time and setting them to the side and inviting other voices to speak into the culture. And that is, I hope, what I can do a little bit with my music, is to maybe have moments where it feels like it's an indictment, but really it comes from love of just like I'm here too,
Yeah.
and I live in this country. My parents, who are immigrants, live in this country, and, my Black or queer or trans or, insert marginalized identity, Indigenous people, the people I think we've done the most harm to, we all live here. And I think we all are having a moment of seeing each other and asking to be seen by the predominant culture.
Yeah, and you've got that line in the song, I see your pain, and that does seem to me crucial to holding together what you're trying to do, right? It's a willingness to see.
I feel your pain, I share your blade, I see America.
Yeah, just a willingness to acknowledge. I think that is, I think that's the biggest thing. I don't think anybody expects anyone to have the answers or to fix anything tomorrow or to even say all the right things. But I think the act of being brave enough to see the imbalances and the injustices in the world and call them as they are, I think that is something we're seeing more and more of, and that I believe is sort of bending the moral arc of the universe.
Yeah. So you obviously, as we've already kind of pointed to, you have this sort of vision of trying to step into not some sort of quick fix, as you just said, but some sort of contribution to possibility steps forward, right?
Yeah.
And so this song, Look Up, I think points in a lovely way towards the redemptive possibilities of love. But any introductory words about that particular song, about kind of how have you came to that?
Yeah, I wrote Look Up during a trip to Los Angeles. I was working sort of like doing a writing trip. They sent me out to write as many songs as possible, as they do.
Yeah.
And I was very tired, and it was almost Christmas. And I think it was my last writing session of the year. And I am not naturally an optimist. I have to work very hard to hope. And I think that is a muscle that I'm really happy to have worked and to have grown in my lifetime. But my partner is she's the most optimistic human I've ever met in my entire life. And I wanted to write a song about how she taught me to hope. And it really is just acknowledging that life is hard and can be broken and messy, but it also can be good. And sometimes you can take those broken pieces and make something interesting or creative and beautiful. And, there's always a chance for a tiny bit of redemption. And so, it was one of the greatest lessons I had learned that year. And I wanted to write a song to mark it, and Look Up is that song.
This is Joy Oladokun with Look Up.
Sometimes your life feels like a broken roller coaster, 1,000 useless moving parts. Sometimes you spend your nights too scared of getting closer, hiding out in the backseat of your car. You tell yourself it's raining, the clouds are in your head. You tell yourself it's better to jump before you fall again, before you lose it all again. Look up, do you see the sunlight? Look up, there's flowers in your hair. Hold on, 'cause somebody loves you. You know trouble's always gonna be there. Don't let it bring you to your knees, yeah. Look up. Mondays aren't always bright. Some days you lose the fight, but life can be beautiful if you let it be. Tomorrow's taunting you with all kinds of mystery. It's a blank page for your poetry if you let it be. So don't tell yourself it's raining, the clouds are in your head. You tell yourself it's better to jump before you fall again, before you lose it all again. Look up, do you see the sunlight? Look up, there's flowers in your hair. Hold on, 'cause somebody loves you. You know trouble's always gonna be there. Don't let it bring you to your knees, yeah. Look up. Oh. Sometimes your life feels like a broken roller coaster, 1,000 useless moving parts. Look up, do you see the sunlight? Look up, there's flowers in your hair. Hold on, 'cause somebody loves you. You know trouble's always gonna be there. Don't let it bring you to your knees, yeah, look up. You know trouble's always gonna be there, look up. Don't let it bring you to your knees, yeah, look up.
When you said that you are not naturally a hopeful person, I was really surprised by that because your disposition presents as such a hopeful, cheerful person, even while you're in the midst of realizing what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
So I want to come back to some of the things you say in the song, but can you tell us a little more in prose about how you've made progress towards cultivating this disposition of greater hopefulness while not being Pollyanna-ish?
Yes. I think that obviously I grew up in like a Christian home and like going to church, and I worked in a church for a long time. So as like from a faith point of view, I think that Christianity is the religion of hope. Like everything sort of centers around this, if it was in the Old Testament, it was this future hope of a savior that would, essentially like make everything right again and rebuild the temple, and then in the New Testament, you have Jesus and that hope realized of like you can be human and be kind and divine and loving all at once. And that hopefully will lead to, an after party in the sky where we all are nice to each other. But yeah, I think that conditioning and that life and that learning and that part of my faith and my spirituality definitely helps make me hopeful. I also have a lot of hopeful friends. I think I try to surround myself with people who have been through a lot but are still smiling anyway. I think that those are some of the most vibrant and fascinating people on this planet who can recognize that life has been hard, but can still find some small piece of life or joy or, brightness out of all the darkness. And I think I owe a great debt to a lot of my friends for teaching me how to actively like hope and to laugh and to smile and to take breaks and to go on walks and to meditate and to read. And yeah, I just have a lot of good people in my life.
Yeah, you have the sorts of lines in the song. One, for example, the clouds are in your head, which points to me in the way I've had to learn to identify unhelpful, if not destructive, loops in my head. I get on the loop and it just runs and runs and runs.
Absolutely.
You tell yourself it's raining. The clouds are in your head. You tell yourself it's better to jump before you fall again, before you lose it all again. Look up, do you see?
Is that part of your reality that you've had to identify kind of the loops and figure out ways to deal with that?
Totally. I am definitely a looper. I definitely spin out a lot, and I've started to like work with, myself and my therapist and like people I trust on identifying those things that I get stuck in that just aren't true. Because I think those are the most damaging, those things that you picked up from, someone who said something on accident or on purpose that hurt your feelings, or those moments where like you get a distorted version of yourself. And yeah, I think those loops are just little distortions of our true nature, and trying to like break free of them and say like, I don't have to be stuck here. Like I'm in the present. I can make different choices, I think that's really important.
Yeah, I've read a lot of stuff from a lot of different perspectives over the last number of years about how one thing that seems specific to the human species is our capacity to note that we can think about our thinking, and learning to think about our thinking is itself one of the ways out of the loops.
Yeah.
And I heard you note meditation, and for me, that's one of the ways I've learned to think about my thing, or that is to note my thinking
Yeah.
and then draw my attention back to something else. But how's the meditation practice worked for you, or what's that been?
I love meditation. It's been really helpful. I think the silence is just the biggest thing, especially as you get in loops, and also the non-judgmental way you sort of approach
Right.
yourself when you start
Huge,
thinking.
yes.
I actually think that maybe even more than the learning how to silence my mind has been the most valuable lesson, is to just not get mad at myself for having thoughts, because that's what brains do, and I have
Right.
a brain.
Yes.
But instead telling my brain, like, hey, I'd actually like to be quiet now, and like find a way to return to that quiet.
Yeah.
It's sort of changed my inner dialogue a bit, because I'm noticing like, oh, I don't have to be so critical or so harsh. Like
Yeah.
I can just say, hey, I'd like to be different or do different, or I'd like to focus on something else. And it can be as simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it was Pema Chodron, the Buddhist nun that I learned the language from, in talking about meditation. You observe the thoughts like a boat coming down the river, and you realize you neither have to squelch nor indulge the thought. And I think so often for me, I thought if I have a thought I don't like, what I have to do is squelch it, or at worst, the real problem would be if I would indulge it.
Yeah.
But it turns out that neither one of those really work very well, right?
No.
And it's learning to say, oh, there's a thought.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's there's a thought.
There they
It's just,
go.
there it is again, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Bigger Man. Tell us about this song.
I had the opportunity to do this song with Maren Morris, and we wrote it together. It was the first time we met, which I feel like can be very intimidating for me, who is like a young songwriter just trying to like make things happen, and Maren being the storied, country pop
Biggest
super
grossing female artist, I suppose, in country.
So like she's just sort of talented. And this song, I had been meditating on two things. One, I had been meditating on this phrase, like, being myself is being my best self. And that day going into the session, I really wanted to just be Joy without any apologies or filters or fillers, and just really like present myself as the full scope of my human self, and I find that when I'm able to bring that into a room as a writer and as a creative, I get my best results. It's not because I'm pressing for my best results. It's just because I'm like adapting to what is happening in the room and seeing how what I bring into a room fits into it. And in that day, I also like had been thinking about the concept of behaving better than people that know better, which is, I think, a feeling that all of us can relate to. And I think that specifically, like, Maren and I could both probably point to instances in our careers where it was like we had to like bite our tongue or like, be respectful while being disrespected. And so I just brought the idea into the session saying like, hey, this came to my mind, and we wrote it. And I'm really proud of this song. I think that it touches on an ancient feeling for a lot of people groups. Like I genuinely do believe everyone can relate to this feeling. But I remember like a couple days after I wrote it, my mom got profiled at a grocery store. And basically like she had bought all our groceries, but they didn't believe her. And so someone started like following her out and asking her questions. And my mom she's amazing. She's a nurse, and like she actually had gone to that grocery store all the time, like as a business, like for her business, to like grab food for her patients. And it was this really like disorienting moment for her to just like, to know that she had done all the right things, but to still be sort of like treated as if she hadn't. And I sent her this song, and it was like, she's like, that's a feeling I haven't had words for. And I think that's what I get to do as a musician. It's like, I'm obviously not curing cancer or, saving lives, or I really do think I have the gift of being able to put words and music and emotion to the human experience. And I think people who do what I do can do with that whatever they will, but I take that as a pretty big responsibility and like an opportunity to really like say things that both cause us to think and unify us. And my hope with Bigger Man was that like someone like me could say it, but also like someone like you could say it, and someone like Marin could say it and sing it, and we all could have our own experiences of how we felt that way. But it also allows like someone who's different from me to say, you felt that way too. And, you know, maybe because of something I've done or something I've been a part of, and it opens up this amazing discussion.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's why I love the song. I really do think it is, it's one of my favorite things I've ever been a part of.
This is Bigger Man.
2, 1, 2, 3.
Here we go again. Still out, still right, still not listening. How it's always been doesn't make any sense. You were born on the high road, but somehow I always go higher. Oh, I hit all the high notes, but still don't got a seat in the choir. I've paddled upstream where the river ran. I've turned sticks and stones to an olive branch. Made a full house from each hand, yet here I am. Still gotta be bigger than the bigger man. Turn the other cheek. At some point you wonder, how nice can you be? Why is it up to me? Maybe it's your turn to think before you speak. Your streets are golden, mine are paved with your leftovers. Oh, the world's spinning backwards, same thing happens over and over and over. I've paddled upstream where the river ran. I've turned sticks and stones to an olive branch. A full house from each man, yet here I am. Still gotta be bigger than the bigger man. It's not your problem, so you think it's none of your business. Oh, you think you're tired? Try longer than 3 minutes. I've paddled upstream where the river ran. I've turned sticks and stones to an olive branch. I made a full house from each hand, yet here I am. Still gotta be bigger than the bigger man.
I see why you're proud of that one. You're listening to Tokens, Public Theology, Human Flourishing, The Good Life. Most grateful to have you joining us. Subscribe today if you have not yet done so to the Tokens podcast on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, CastBox, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. We do love hearing from you and are always pleased to hear some of the things you'd like to hear more about. You can email us at podcast@tokensshow.com. Also, remember, you can sign up for our email list or find out how to join us for a live event, all at tokenshow.com. This is our episode with Joy Oladokun, live from Nashville's Sound Emporium, Part 2, in just a moment. This is our episode with Joy Oladokun, live from Nashville's Sound Emporium. So, as I noted at the top, I hear you holding together in this deft way, noting what's going on in the world while holding on to this sort of redemptive possibilities. And I see you doing that again here in this song. And you noted your parents being Nigerian immigrants. What do you think are ways in which your experience as children of immigrants has helped you try to hold together both of those things?
I honestly think that's the whole reason I do this balancing act as both a human and as a writer. I mean, I grew up in a household that was like predominantly culturally Nigerian. And then I was going to school in America and like had American friends. And, you know, I grew up in a small farming town in Arizona. So like not a lot of people like me. And so I just sort of learned to both embrace other people's cultures and hope that my culture would be embraced and sort of like hold it all open-handedly. And I think that sort of comes from just that initial lesson of sort of being born with a foot in two worlds already. And I don't think I think that moving to the middle of nowhere in Arizona helped for sure. But I do think anywhere I would have ended up, I would have sort of had this sense of balance between, you know, the culture that I sort of create as a human going through this moment in history and, you know, the culture of my parents and generations before. And that tension becomes a little bit more apparent in the life of an immigrant kid.
You have the line about still not listening.
Here we go again. Still out, still right, still not listening. How it's all.
You know, as a white man, I hear a song like this and I'm reminded to pay attention to privilege, right?
No.
But how do you speculate that those who are somewhat entrenched in privilege make constructive moves toward beginning to see or beginning to hear when they've not been required to by their privilege?
Yeah, I mean, that is tough. I mean, I think there's something to that story in the Bible with Jesus and the rich young man where the rich young man wants to follow Jesus and Jesus says, if you want, sell everything and follow me. And I think that's less about personal possessions and more about worldviews. And I think that people who are entrenched in maybe privilege or just like entrenched in ignorance to some of the like imbalanced systems in the world that we live in, just sort of have to have this moment of selling the farm, essentially, and saying that whatever I was committed to by accident or by ignorance or willfully, I can't commit to anymore. And I honestly think that the life that you lead is relatively similar. Not a lot changes, you know. You just have to think about one or two things a little differently. But there is just sort of this like scales coming off the eyes, awakening moment of just like, oh, a lot of the simple things that I've been conditioned to believe I worked hard for or that like I just get because I'm good, you know, are actually like moments of privilege or things that were handed to me. And, you know, even I have privilege, and it's sort of just all about all of us being willing to wake up to it and change our lifestyle a little bit.
I was struck by the line, turn the other cheek. At some point you wonder how nice can you be.
At some point you wonder how nice can you be. Why is it up to me? Maybe it's your turn to think before you speak. Your streets are
If you'll allow me just a moment, theology geek indulgence here.
Yeah.
So there's this theologian named Walter Wink, passed away, I don't know, a decade or two ago. And Wink was the first person who introduced me to a different way to read the Sermon on the Mount, because I think for a lot of us, we've begun to presume in the Western world that turn the other cheek is a sort of call to be nice.
Yeah.
And a sort of, you lay down as a doormat. Jesus says, turn the other cheek, so you're supposed to lay down on it like a doormat. And, you know, Wink says and argues pretty compellingly that really maybe what Jesus is doing by turn the other cheek is not saying that at all. That what he's saying is find a third way between fight or flight and figure out how to tell the truth in a compelling way that cannot be ignored. And so he tells this compelling story about turning the other cheek, which actually was a way that you could turn the tables of power and privilege so that people all of a sudden realized the way they were using power and privilege in a way that they had to step back from.
Yeah.
And so the irony, I think, is that you've got that line in the song that presumes what we've done to that phrase, but you yourself, I think, are finding a third way between fight or flight in your very song.
Yeah, and that was sort of the tension with that line is, I love that. I think that is a beautiful way to read that scripture in that moment, because I don't think even Jesus would let someone slap him a bunch of times, from what we know about Jesus and his occasional attitude. I think that there's this story about, I think it's about the first integrated college group. And so these young adults, some black, some white, the white kids begin throwing stuff at the black teens. And one of the girls takes like a piece of paper or whatever it is and walks it back to the bully and hands it to him, basically reloading his ammo, but it gives him a moment to think about what he's doing. And as the story goes, like the sort of bullying moment ceases and they begin to like sort of see these moments of like humanity and understanding between the group of white kids and black kids. And it all started with this moment of this girl in a moment of being harassed saying, I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to hand it back to you and give you the choice of what to do with it.
Yeah.
And I think that is, I honestly think that's sort of what my life is. I think that's what my life is. Like, I think I exist as the turned cheek, essentially. Like, I'm a black queer woman. I live in the South now. There's a lot of, people on this planet who are not happy about all my intersections. But I think that my disposition and like the work that I do and the music that I make is all about saying, like, despite all the violence that I've suffered in my lifetime and that people like me have suffered in their lifetimes, I'm going to hope and I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to invite you to hope and be happy and heal with me without any prerequisites or conditions. The only condition is that you have to be willing to accept my humanity to do it. And that's kind of it. And I think that's sort of the power of the phrase or the idea of turning the other cheek is like, if someone slaps you or if you slap someone and they turn and offer you their cheek, that's an act. Like, a human is acting and saying, like, I'm going to give you an opportunity to make the same or make a different decision. Yeah. And it makes us think. And I don't know. I think that is a really powerful way to look at that scripture.
Yeah. So you've alluded to your Christian heritage, raised in the church. I think you said you worked in a church for some time. How do you think of your kind of journey in your own understanding of yourself, your own understanding of your vocation and work in the world vis-a-vis the church that kind of birthed you into the world?
Yeah. I often tell people that I'm just essentially doing what I did in church, but I came out as gay, so they won't necessarily let me do it in church anymore. Because a lot of what I do is so motivated by love. Like, love for myself, love for this life and this planet, and love for others. Every choice I make as an artist, I weigh, like, from who I work with to the songs I release to how I release them. And I think that is so the heart of Christianity, and so the heart of Christ is love, specifically for those on the margins. Like, I think that is what was so exciting to me about Christianity, and what continues to be in my own sort of like spiritual walk is Jesus was always talking to people outside of the popular groups. And that's why, as a young black kid growing up in a predominantly white society, Christianity was delicious to me because I was outside of the predominant group. And so my work and my music is just to continue to offer a space where those who feel like they're outside of the predominant group can go and just like hang out and be happy and acknowledge the hard feelings and the good feelings and the love and the loss. And honestly, like, a predominant culture people can come hang too. Like, it really is like, it is a party for everybody. But I do think that I like am, again, sort of creating this weird third culture world where just although my race and my sex and, my all those things clearly exist, I often don't feel like they exist in the rooms that I play music in, because everybody is so different, but everybody is just so focused on the sound and on the hope and on the words and on the lessons that you learn. And that's what I found really powerful about church music, is that it was so focused on reminding us and remembering the good. And while I do sometimes feel Christian music can be limited in its expression of the breadth of human emotion, I think the best thing that it does for us is remind us how music can change our mood and our outlook, and remind us of what's good and hopeful in this life. And so I try to bring a lot of that into what I do.
Your song Sunday, clearly explicit allusions, references to your Christian heritage, but kind of what gave rise to this particular song, or what's important to you in your experience in this particular song?
Yeah. This song is funny to me because I wrote it after a really bad day at work, and I just thought it was about a bad day at work. And it wasn't until a few months after I co-produced it with this guy named Robopop who lives in LA. And a few months after us sending it back and forth, I was listening to the final version in Nigeria with my family. I was there to visit my grandma. And in Nigeria, it's illegal to be gay. And I had just started seeing someone long-term, and I had come out to my parents about a year prior. And so we were just there was this sort of convergence of my parents wrestling with my sexuality and the practical part of it and the culture part of it and the faith part of it, and wondering if I still had faith. And I was listening to this song in headphones, and I was like, oh, this is totally about this. It's totally about my identity and my desire to just sort of like Jacob, wrestle with the angel until I get my blessing. And I think that in this song is me acknowledging a lot of the shame that came up growing up religious and queer. And this song, partially, I hope, just sets free a lot of people like me who love God so much, but also just have a natural disposition towards loving people like us. 1, 2, 3, 4. I love this song so much, and I really do. I feel honored that it's helped the people that it's helped, and it's helped me.
Mama says I'm up to no good again. Couldn't make her proud, though I did my best. No, I feel like a mess. I feel like I'm stuck in the wrong skin. I feel like I'm sick, but I'm having trouble swallowing my medicine. Sunday, carry me down to the water, wash me clean. I'm still struggling. Sunday, bury me under the weight of who you need me to be. Can't you see I'm struggling? I keep God locked in a picture frame, so I feel a little better about my numbered days. Yeah, I confess, the questions and the answers seem to sound the same. I'm just like the rest, standing tall, pretending not to be afraid. Sunday, carry me down to the water, wash me clean. I'm still struggling. Sunday, bury me under the weight of who you need me to be. Can't you see I'm struggling? Sunday, come around, lift me up again. I'm never too proud for a helping hand. I've been feeling down. Can you hear me now? Sunday, come around, lift me up again. I'm never too proud for a helping hand. I've been feeling down. Can't you see I'm struggling? Can't you see I'm struggling?
That's Joy Oladokun with her song Sunday. Thanks, Joy. Got Tim Lauer back over here on the Fender Rhodes with us. Thanks, Tim. Well, we got time for one more to take us out.
I can do that.
Another great song about a little compassion. So it's been a delight to have you with us. Thank you so much for your time and your words and
Thank you for having me.
your work and the gifts you're sharing with the world.
Thank you.
When the light is gone and you're on your own, you've been trying but the fight never goes away, and you don't know when sun will shine again. All you gotta do is look my way. Yeah. If you got a problem, I got a problem too. If you're standing at the bottom, I'll reach out for you. If you need someone to lean on, baby, I can be strong. I will carry you through. If you got a problem, I got a problem too. Everybody needs something to believe. If you want, you can always put your faith in me. I don't know it all, but I know how it feels to fall. With a helping hand, you'll find your feet. If you got a problem, I got a problem too. If you're standing at the bottom, I'll reach out for you. If you need someone to lean on, baby, I can be strong. I will carry you through. If you got a problem, I got a problem too. If you're lonely, if you're down and out, holding out for a better day, call out for me. I'll come running, and we'll find a better way. 'Cause if you got a problem, I got a problem too. If you're standing at the bottom, I'll reach out for you. If you need someone to lean on, baby, I can be strong. I will carry you through. If you got a problem, I got a problem too. If you need someone to lean on, baby, I can be strong. I will carry you through. If you got a problem, I'll reach out for you.
You've been listening to Tokens, Public Theology, Human Flourishing, The Good Life. Remember, you can subscribe to our podcast wherever you subscribe to your favorite podcasts. If you've got feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Email us, podcast@tokensshow.com. Thanks to all the stellar team that makes this podcast possible. Christy Bragg of Bragg Management, co-producer Jacob Lewis, associate producers Ashley Bain and Tom Anderson, music director Mr. Tim Lauer, who also joined us in this session on the Fender Rhodes there at the Sound Emporium. Engineering by Carrie Harmon, with engineering of the live session at the Sound Emporium by Joe Trentacosti, with post-production mixes of Joy's performances by Ross Collier. Thanks for listening, and peace be unto thee. The Tokens Podcast is a production of Tokens Media, LLC, and
Great Feeling Studios.